Hello, everyone. Welcome to Real Talk with Tia and Jill. And today we have a very special guest to kick off the new year.
Woo, Angela! I'm so glad to have you with us.
So nice to be here and Happy New Year to everyone.
Yes, Happy New Year. This is our first episode of the new year. 2025 seems like it's so far away at some point, but we are here in the year 2025. And we want to know in the comments, like who's here, who's listening, and share with us a word that describes how the start of 2025 is going for you.
Yeah. Well, and if you just joined us, you may have seen we are making some changes in 2025. So you may have seen our video that plays. So as people are coming in, you get a little more entertainment than just the dark screen that says starting soon.
That's right. And for people who know us, they know that we're entertaining. We like to be the fun, right? And be around fun.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So we had a little heads up on the one word that describes how 2025 is starting for us. I know, Angela, you were like, oh man, I got to come up with the one word.
I would say the one word, really, I think you said it, right? This is a big year for me too. It's a year of change. I think it's a strategic change. So I think of it as strategic change that I would be wanting to think of in terms of how I do things, how I plan things, and also the people I engage with, right? I don't know if you think of it as strategic, but certainly strategic change is better than just change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ooh, I like that. That's good. Yeah. And you say you did not have a word, and look at you.
And this is how these things kind of come up, right? They're things that we're sitting with, and we're like, speaking them out loud, breathing life into the word, to the phrases that we've had on our mind. So
yes. Hi, Happy New Year, Tasia. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, from right down the road. Good to see you.
Jill, what is your one word describe?
Yeah, I'm not sure I have one word, but something I read the other day has stuck with me. Somebody had written, I think in a blog, that 2025, they were going, instead of resolving to do something or take something away, they were like, I'm playing for high stakes.
Ooh.
Like, we have a lot to offer and we have a lot to give. So why play small? Like, go all in, high stakes. And that's kind of resonated with me. And I'm still trying to understand what that means for me personally, for us professionally together. But that's something that stuck with me, with high stakes, like go big.
I like that. Let's see.
How about for you?
I know. I'm trying to pick from one of you two before. But you know what? I think what you're saying, I almost go back to the workshop we had last week. That's why we didn't have Real Talk. And we actually had 2025 Year of You. And it was coupled with our book club talking about the crossroads of shoulds and musts. And if you have not read that book, I definitely recommend it. We recommend it. But I think one thing that stood out to me in the book, but also in the workshop, was really around what are those things that really calls to you and your passion. And this year, I really want to figure out what that is. And to your point, Jill, to not play small. It's one of the things, like over these last few months, I've kind of realized that I don't do things that I'm not good at because I think I'm not good at them. So let someone else do that, right? Because they're great at it. But it goes into all types of things. Like the other day, my husband was like, have you ever been skiing? I was like, no, I haven't actually. And it never crosses my mind really to go because I don't really like to be cold, number one. But also, number two, I'm probably not good at it because I have terrible balance. But it doesn't mean I shouldn't do those things that I'm not good at. So this year, I want to explore more and kind of lean into those times that I feel that I'm saying, oh, well, I'm not really good at that. I'm just going to skip it or I've never done it before, not really interested, so I'm going to skip it. No, maybe I should do it, right? Maybe I should do it and step into it. So that's where I am, and I think it's been going okay over these last just literally 2 weeks that we've had so far in 2025. But that's really one of my focuses this year.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Right? For all of us, it's part of this mindset that kind of helps guide us with clarity, alignment, all of it.
Yes, and we want to hear yours. This is how we know that you're out there. Put it in the comments. Say hello to us. And let us know. How are you kicking off 2025?
And Tasia, since we know you're here, since you were brave enough to kick us off with a comment to say, hello from MSP, we'd love to know what your word is, and others.
Yes.
And if it is your first time joining us, we are Catalyst. We're so happy to have you here. And Tia and I are on a mission to empower food industry leaders to live authentically, achieve more, and drive business growth. And we do that through coaching and leadership development and culture work. And really what we do is we partner with organizations that are ready to do the work. Those who want sustainable, transformative solutions that unlock potential, align their teams, and drive meaningful results. So we help leaders and teams overcome those barriers to growth and innovation so that you can actually have lasting impact without quick fix shortcuts. We are not generic, out-of-the-box leadership development. We offer tailored, customized solutions. So if you're experiencing resource overload without progress, or your team is stuck in the day-to-day, or you're having food safety culture added to your plate, and we know the bar is being raised on this year with all of our auditing certification bodies, but you don't know how you're going to accomplish it, we know how to solve those problems. We're the answer. So message us to learn more.
Yes. And we are happy to have you here on our weekly Real Talk, where we dive into food safety, leadership, how the connection between leadership and culture. And today we have a very, very special guest, Dr. Angela Anandappa, with us today. And she's going to introduce herself in a minute, but we're excited to have her here because of her connection to sanitation. She actually created the Sanitation Alliance that we want her to talk about today. But then you are just a strong leader in the industry. And we hope to learn and for you to share with our audience just how you have evolved through your career, but also where does leadership and leadership skills and people skills fall in to your journey, to your success that you've had so far. So with that, Angela, I would love for you to introduce yourself and please let our audience know your journey to where you are today.
That's a lot to ask, but thank you. Thank you for having me here, both of you, Jill and Tia. I'm happy to chat with everyone who's here and to share what I have learned. Hopefully it's useful, but I'm also really welcoming of all of your questions. And if you have anything to ask in the meantime, while I'm talking, just ask away and we'll keep the conversation going. So I lead the Alliance for Advanced Sanitation, which is an organization we set up in collaboration with several companies in the food industry, because we know that the fundamental part of food safety is hygiene. And sanitation in food manufacturing facilities is a critical, but yet, almost forgotten role sometimes. And I'd see several companies do a very good job at this, and some are very good at, really organizing leadership for those individuals in sanitation, and some are really not. So it's a very disparate area in the food industry, and it needs a lot of different people, lots of different efforts, all of that to make sure that, we do a better job there. So I started my journey, I would say going back, all the way back, I was interested in microbiology, and I was really interested in going to med school. And this is not an unusual story when you think about it, because there are several people who have come into the food industry who thought they were going to med school originally, and I was one of them. Yes. And the whole point there is that we have a passion for public health. You have a passion for human beings to be healthy, and you want to do something in that. So that's how I got into food safety. But it came from an unusual area because I was in microbiology. My program was in biology. So I was going to be a biology major, and I was also a piano major because those were my two majors as an undergraduate. And I was always talking to my advisor about food. Apparently, I cooked a lot. Apparently, I liked to talk about whatever I was making. And I was probably talking his head off. And he just said, you should really look at food science. And he inspired me to take a look at what food science was. And so I only got into food science as a graduate student in the master's level program. So I had to catch up a little bit on food science from a more fundamental level. But so my background has a lot of heavy biology, heavy microbiology, because I pursued both clinical microbiology and food microbiology. And so I did that, practically and in my work. And so I have worked in clinical labs as well as food and food manufacturing and food innovation. So that's a long time, I'd say, going back a few years. But I've spent quite a bit of time from the innovation side as well as bringing products to market. So through all of that journey of what does it take to take a product to market, I've learned that food safety really matters. And from all of those experiences, I decided that I'm going to spend some of my life, let's say, I'm not going to say every piece of it, looking at how I can be the best tool with my skills to work in preventive health. So I think of my job as preventing illness. So if we were to prevent illness, we don't have a case of foodborne illness, right? And if you don't have a case of foodborne illness, sometimes it means you don't have certain chronic illnesses long-term as well. And so I'm really interested in this as a mission, more like a life mission. How do I contribute to the benefit of all? So that's kind of how I see what I do.
That's awesome. That's awesome to just think about your passion and how that flows into, like, I know I want to prevent, that I want to focus on public health and how that has shaped what you have done through your career.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious, Angela, because it sounds like through the story that there were probably these seeds of preventive health along the way. But I'm curious, at what point were you able to kind of articulate that and say, it is the preventive side that really is my passion?
Right. So I would say probably about 15 years ago, I had to encounter what I would say is a difficult part of my life and a part of my family's life with serious illness. And at that time, I worked in the area of biotechnology, and I worked with genome sequencing. And I tried to solve what I thought would be a solvable problem for me with my skills. And I was really having to deal with the fact that I didn't have the skills to solve what I thought I could, right? And I really thought of it as a very big issue that I know a lot now. I can do this. And I realized, no. This type of condition that I'm referring to is, neurodegenerative. And so when I dug deeper into that, I realized the answer isn't necessarily in post disease. Once you have a diagnosis, there's only so many things you can do, and there are already people doing some work there. I already have skills that really have to do with preventive health, and so I want to know, how do we prevent what causes a condition? So I tend to be wanting to look at, if there is a certain condition that we're looking for. Let's say salmonella illness is an easy thing that we get to, as a microbiologist, we do this all the time. But there are so many other things that cause strife to people. So I want to know what those things are, and then go back and, as a scientist, dig into what's the mechanism. What is it that we know? What do we not know? And if we don't know something, keep it as something that I want to monitor, right? But as someone who looks at risk, and how do we understand risk, and how do we understand when we need to act on a risk? from a food perspective and from a food safety perspective, we need to understand prevalence. We need to understand how bad it can be. We need to understand patterns. We need to understand the global landscape. So I like to do that sort of surveillance work, thinking not just, this adulteration happened, but what does that really mean to those who consume that food? So I like to connect those two things, I'd say, and then look at it from a preventive perspective, and then say, okay, well, this is something we can act on, or it's not something we should act on, but we have to make a decision, right? And that's ultimately a business decision. So if you have to make a business decision, you need to know a lot more than saying, well, 10,000 people are going to get sick. Well, how? And how does my company have a role to play here, right? So I think we have a lot more, there's a lot more to unravel in that.
Yeah. The way that you talk about preventive care and preventive health, it's almost like a light bulb of like, it makes sense that you would focus on sanitation, because like what you said, it really is the foundation to a foodborne illness, right? If you don't have great sanitation, it's hard to do all the other stuff around it, right? If your area is not.
Absolutely.
Is that the reason why you found yourself really in this space of sanitation?
Well, I knew someone needed to be tackling sanitation because I was responsible for supply chain food safety at Kraft Foods. So one thing that you learn there is when you have a very large supply chain is you need to have very good data. And ultimately, you need to understand the largest suppliers you have and the smallest. And so I've worked in that space of working with very small suppliers as well. And in that work, what you learn that's consistent is they don't spend enough time in beefing up some things like sanitation programs. It's also an area in which if you want to see risk, that's where it is, right? The Washington Post just did an article on the boar's head issue, and how that was the fundamental area that USDA found was lacking. And this is not the first time. It's happened in so many other cases before. And why is it that we have to wait until there's a big case and to say, hey, that's what went wrong? But then there's multiple other companies who know that that's where they need to really look and invest in their people there. And you need to take it as a call to action, where you need to look at that type of program.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, Angela, I think you hit on something that I think if you've worked in food at all and you're honest with yourself, when people say, how is sanitation? You'll always say, we have room to improve.
Oh, yes.
Even the facilities that I've been in or I've seen that you're like, wow, this is impressive. They still have work to do.
Oh, yeah.
There are still so many areas. So when we think about the importance of this area and supporting people in this space, it is one of the most critical areas we have when it comes to food safety.
Yeah, I love the way you say invest in the people, because in facilities where, it seems like things are going well, right? Equipment's clean, area's clean, right? Even warehouse clean, outside is clean. Typically, the people sometimes are a little burnt out or unappreciated, or, because sanitation sometimes live behind the scenes, right? And as an operations group, you're trying to even shorten sanitation as much as possible, right? So that you can continue to run and make product. And so just that time and those people, right? If you have a dedicated sanitation team, sometimes they're almost forgotten and definitely not taken care of, right? And so, but I feel like that kind of seeps into the sanitation program, right? And seeps into the foundation that is food safety.
Right.
Yeah. I like the way you said that.
So clearly you like to tackle some complex challenges. And one way that you're looking at sanitation is through the Alliance for Advanced Sanitation. Can you tell us more about that and our audience? Because there may be some people who are like, what is that? How do I learn more?
Right. Thank you. It's a good question, because it's when in my head, I want to solve all things sanitation. And I know that that's not possible. right? Not just with one. But I do believe that there is a power in teams, there's a power of the collective. And I think if we're going to solve sanitation issues, that is where it is. So it's not really a matter of me or either one of you either, right? It really is in us and our interest in having something better that we can all share. And it's a fundamental need for all the individuals who are working in that space and for all the systems. There's a lot of automation that we need for that space. And I would say that it's neglected more than anywhere else. And I don't find that this is the priority when you want to automate things, right? So something I tell people often is, I want to see automation of the things that we hate to do. If we don't like it, if it's unsafe for someone, if it's a miserable activity, that's where we need to spend money, because no one wants to do it. Let's not assume that there's someone who wants to do the dirty job, right? So let's try to look at that. That's hard to say when it comes to the mechanism of actually doing it, though, right? Because some of those things are really complex, and the human mind is much more capable. Even the most simple actions sometimes require, these different parts of our brain to work for that automation to work. So if we were to say, let's replace a human being with automation, it isn't as easy of a task.
Right.
But it is something that I'd like to challenge people to say, ask for this. If you don't need to be the one who does it, but ask for it, because that's how you're going to get it.
Yeah, that's such a good point. That's such a good point, because if you have automation, even the part where you're saying, like, if no one wants to do the job, how do you automate it? Because you're right. I mean, it's hard to find people to do jobs that no one wants to do, right? And even if you get someone in a role, it's only a matter of time before they feel, burnt out, overworked, or just unhappy in their job. And then what, right?
Yep. And the people side of sanitation is one of the key elements. And then there's all these systems and engineering development and engineering designs and all of these other things that are really important in how you build a facility and how you build equipment and how you make that all better, which I find interesting and intriguing. And there's a lot of brain activity that you can have there, which I find fun. But yeah, I think what you're talking about in terms of people and the things that you do, I would love to see that investment in people so that they become better at what they do, and they also build the leadership skills that they need to have so that they can continue to work to improve that segment.
Yes. We 100% agree. Obviously, that's why we're in this space, because we know that there's a need within the food industry. And we're curious, like, as you talk about people and just the need to have better leadership skills, how have leadership skills, like your leadership skills, evolved over the years? And what key qualities do you believe are essential for leaders in the food industry today?
Wow, that's challenging. But I would say one of the biggest things I would say for me is really look at who you're working with and who you need to be working with, because leading one group of people is not the same as leading a different group of people. And the skills you need to employ have to be flexible. If you're not flexible in how you think and how you engage with people, it's really hard to get very far.
Yeah.
So I'd say flexibility is probably key in terms of what skills you build and what skills you think you need, and then acquiring the skills that you don't have. I love what you said about skiing and how your husband and you were talking about skiing, Tia. A friend of mine, she's in her 70s. I have friends who are in their 90s too. I just do. But this friend of mine who's in her 70s asked me a couple of years ago what it would take to ride a skateboard. I have never been on a skateboard. I'm not the person to ask, right? But the question was, will she fall and will she hurt herself? And my answer is, yeah, absolutely. You're going to fall. You're going to hurt yourself. But she was interested in seeing if she could tackle that, because she said, well, if I don't do it, when am I going to try? Right? I think that's a thing that we can all, it can resonate with us in terms of, is there something you want to do? If you're not going to try, you're not going to succeed at it. And my balance is terrible. I'd probably be bad at it too. But I think it made me think, okay, it may be worth a shot. Maybe I'll fall. Maybe I'll hurt myself. But I think I want to try doing that sometime. A skateboard. I don't know about skiing. But I think these are all things that we could probably entertain for a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely feel like that there's a parallel there to just leadership and how to lead and not being afraid to step in, right? And know that sometimes you might get it wrong and you might have to apologize and you might have to go back to the table. But really stepping in and saying, hey, like what's, to your point, like what skills do I have? What skills do I need in order to be successful? Leading a team or leading even a program, right? Like sanitation.
Right. I mean, you can always understand technical skills. If you lack the technical skills, those can be taught, those can be learned. And I don't think anyone should ever think that they can't learn it. That's a critical piece of it, right? If you don't have the technical skills, that does not mean that the world isn't out there for you. Right. There are training programs, there's universities, so many places in which you can get those skills and you can teach yourself and you can learn further and you can continue to add to that. But it's your attitude, that flexible attitude in terms of wanting those skills that you have to have. You know, if you're very rigid in what you think you want to do, or, you know, I only want to work in this part of the country, or I only want to be in this place, which I'm comfortable with, right? These are the kinds of things that you have to challenge, and you have to ask yourself, is that the right thing for you? Is that the right thing for your future? And again, there are people who I think want that to be rigid for themselves. So ask yourself that if you want to actually develop your skills, what things do you need to let go of so that you can add what you need into your life?
I love that.
Yeah. I think that is really powerful because often, even when we know that we want change or we think we want change, still that challenge to ourselves, because we often will still stay within our comfort zone versus going out of our comfort zone. And so how do we even challenge ourselves to do that? And I'm going to even connect that back to sanitation, because so often when we think about sanitation in our facilities, we're like, well, this is how we've always done it. Like, this is the only way it can be done within the time that we have. This is the only resources available for us. But there really are, just like you pointed out, there are so many services and people and technology, and all of these exist outside if we're willing to go look. Right?
Yeah. And I think the people side of things, like, it's just such an area that people do not focus on, where many times people are like, you know, we need a shorter sanitation. And when I owned sanitation, that was one of the things that people always talk to me about. We need shorter sanitation, or, you know, sanitation, make sure that the trash is not going to shut down the facility, you know, all these things that we're trying to work around. But sometimes when there's a challenge, just understanding how people think and move and interact with their equipment and what they're doing and what barriers they have, how they even feel and think about the work that they're doing, that covers, I mean, there's times when you just work with people, you can eliminate 30 minutes from your sanitation. Just looking at how people are moving, how they feel about the work that they're doing, right? And what tools do you have for them to do their job easier, right? Like, I've solved issues just looking at people. And I think that we just don't give our leaders the right skills to be able to have those interactions with other people so that they can solve complex issues. You know, once you kind of understand the people side, then you can really hone into the technical side, right? Then you can really hone into this technology makes the most sense for our facility or for our organization because we understand the people and what they need and what they're missing, right? You know, I think a lot of times we understand processes because that's what we do. But that people side is just something that I think that we miss often that can help us solve problems.
I think just to build on what you're saying, Tia, I think when you say that you understand the people, that's so relevant to each facility. It's not each company. And it has to do with the fact that, and I am speaking for the US only here, is that we have so many places in which rural facilities are located, and they're
Right.
all so far into very rural parts of the country in which that micro environment there might be
Mhm.
very different from another. So even if you're trying to put in new tools and new fancy tools, you need to understand where you're going to put this into. And that's that whole piece of investing, not just investing in pieces of equipment, but people that are going to be doing that work, right? So
Yeah.
both of it, both sides of that matter.
Yes. Yes.
Well, you bring up a good point because the food industry is always evolving. And oftentimes people are just keeping up with their work. And it can be challenging to stay ahead of like what are new trends or what new things are available to help even as you want to improve. Do you have any strategies or any like go-to places that you lean on for making that easier for people to connect with what is new or what support is out there so that they can maybe not maybe stay in, maybe get ahead of some of the trends, but at least be aware of them to know which ones are even worth looking at?
Right. And I think there's another part of that I think we should care about, Jill, is just because it's a trend, is it something that you should be involved in? And do
Absolutely.
I want to put this in my priorities for this
Mhm.
year, let's say, right? At the
Yeah.
beginning of the year, we could probably think about what's a skill you want to learn this year, or what's something that you want to beef up your career in terms of the next job you're looking for. I mean, everyone should be looking for the next role because it's a matter of personal growth. It's really not a matter of company growth. It's a
Mhm.
matter of what do I want to do for me? And as a result, what do I want to do for my employer? Because I am growing. And how are we, them and you, employer and employee, going to be working together to both develop the skill and then put it to good use?
Mhm.
So I think looking for where the company is going is important. Like I'm assuming that everyone who's listening to this is probably employed at some company, right? So what skill do you want? What do you see for yourself? And then looking at, I mean, I would always look at the news in terms of tech magazines.
Mhm.
What are they trying to do? What are the new technologies that they're looking to implement? And certainly in the segment. So if it's food safety or food innovation, for instance, what's a new trend that we need to adopt to? We certainly had so much more of a need, let's say, and a push for sanitation, better sanitation when we're going to clean label ingredients and clean label products that you're making, right? Because it makes the need for better sanitation that much more critical because you don't have certain other ways to preserve the product.
Right.
So all these strategies that we would implement. So in terms of developing your skill set, I think you have technical skills that we would be looking for, but
Mhm.
also you need to keep in mind that maybe you want to develop your personal skills, your project management skills. We're going to be offering a project management course at the Alliance because we know we will have people who want to do that. So we'll have different types of things that we're offering through the Alliance, for instance, and then other organizations that also provide so many interesting things that you can learn from.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. You brought up innovation a few times, so I want to ask a question around that, because you've been involved in innovation, you've been involved in teaching, you co-founded Food Systems Innovation Center, and so I'm curious, how do you see education and innovation playing a role in shaping the future of food safety leadership?
Okay. I think innovation is always going to be at the heart of what we do in food safety,
Mhm.
because if you don't keep up with the innovation and the trends that people want to purchase in terms of a product,
Mhm.
you also don't push yourselves to do sanitation. You
Mhm.
don't push yourself to do better food safety. You don't push yourself to understand risks. So all of that sort of is driven by a need for innovation and by a need to successfully give someone a product that they love ultimately, right? So that innovation is really about that, satisfying you, me, all of us who want to be satisfied with whatever we're going to buy in the store.
Mhm.
And so that means we have to keep up with innovation. I don't think we have a choice about that. If we're going to do in food safety, you can't say I can't. That innovation is not part of it. The other side of it is I see us as being, I see me definitely as one who I'm always learning and I'm always teaching. So I don't see that as a unique role that I would play. I'm always going to do that. And I'm going back to when I told you guys about how I was a biology major and a music major. So at some point I had to decide, do I do both? And how do I do both? Because it's hard. These are very different areas.
Yes.
But I told myself that if I was to pick biology, the science is something I need to learn different things, right? But I had already achieved quite a lot of advanced training and achievement in music. And so what I do know is the music never leaves you.
True.
And that's, I think, the thing about training and teaching people too, that doesn't leave you, because if you're learning, it's innate. You are going to want to also share that. It's really about sharing and wanting to share it with other people to help them grow. That should be something you do because it satisfies you too.
Yeah. I think that's also a play on like innovation, really. Like you constantly wanting to learn and be better and, pursue your passions. You have to even continue to innovate yourself, right? And think about like what skills do you need in this world today, but also 5 years from now. I mean, we know the world changed so much. I was thinking the other day, someone I was talking to, and we met like right before COVID. And I'm like, wow, we have known each other for a long time. We met in 2019. And then we started talking about 2020. And then it's like, wow, that was 5 years ago. It does not feel like that. It doesn't feel like it was 5 years ago. But the world is so different today, versus then. And obviously we went through a global pandemic. So that was a huge shift. But even when we look through our careers, right, or even think about the future, 5 years from now, it's going to look different, right? We're going to have different people in the workforce. There's going to be, the studies show that 10,000 baby boomers are retiring a day. It's going to look different in the industry in 5 years.
Right.
And so when you talk about innovation, just in food safety, but also as businesses, we have to continue to innovate and be ahead of the trends. Or I like even what you said around the trends, like you being able to make a decision to say, is this relevant to us right now? And if it's not yet relevant to us, what skills, what people, right? What skills, for lack of a better word, do we need to build in order to be ready when it is relevant to our business or our people or to me personally as someone that's growing?
Right.
And I even like this challenge you've put about our individual and personal growth and how that actually supports business growth in a different way. So often the equation runs that business needs drive what you can select from for your personal growth during the year, and you get something. But yet, even with that, that's almost a prescriptive method where there's kind of this standard of here's what we think we need versus allowing all of these creative minds that come to work every day to say, hey, here's something that's of interest to me to help me grow. And having the faith and trust that will infuse into the organization to help with innovation in a way that we probably never even imagined. So I love that you think about, like, how do we as individuals kind of step into that space to say, where do I want to go? Because whatever that is, will still have positive impact around me.
Yes. Even when I think about organizations that have strong cultures, many of those organizations really value, many, if not all of them, really value the personal passions of their employees, because you also gain skills from doing your passions, right? From following the things that you feel like you need in order to grow. Those skills that you're gaining from doing that, they do translate to what you're doing at work. I mean, many times the first time of us thinking about being on stage or speaking in front of people, right? It was us doing maybe something that we're passionate about, or maybe something in elementary school, or something that really didn't even tie to, right, maybe a business that we're thinking about. But those skills are critical, right? For speaking in front of people you don't know, that you might have to try to sell a new technology to, or, sharing your program improvements, or, your own personal improvements, like insert those things. Like you can learn those skills even outside of your day-to-day job. And I think organizations with strong cultures recognize that. And they take advantage of that.
Yeah. And I think if you're a business leader, you must take advantage of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a matter of saying, we need these things, here's the strategy, hey, go get more skills to do this, right? It's a lot better to manage a person who is self-motivated,
Mm-hmm.
because they're going to bring more every day to work. So why not leverage that? And really, I'm talking about taking advantage of that. That's really what it is. And I think if we're honest about it, like you said, are we really going to be honest about it? Why not also share that that's what you're interested in with your manager, with your leaders? So, and coming from the perspective of, I want to do this, that's, it shouldn't be completely different in an entirely different area, right? But something that you understand can also be of benefit to the company's strategic mission. And it may not be your current job that this may be in, but it may be something that you have as an additive thing that helps maybe your team. Maybe your team get better at something, but it's something that is self-driven and self-motivated as well.
Yeah. And I almost see those spaces as like safe spaces to learn. So like even when people go through our leadership programs and we really focus on practicing what we learn so we can reflect on it. Sometimes people practice on their kids, right? Or at home, or have a difficult conversation with a friend, or, use an influence method, right? With their teenage boys. We have those stories all the time because, first of all, they're problems that need to be solved in our lives, but it also could be a safer space to kind of practice those skills so that when you need them in a higher stakes situation, right, you've already practiced it, right? Those skills are starting to become competencies for you. And it's a lot easier when you've already had some practice. So even using those opportunities to practice the skills that you're building is, again, another way that a business can leverage, right? Take advantage of without having consequences inside the business.
So Angela's talking about skills. I'm curious what's happening at the Alliance this year, because you talked about project management, and we know that you often are hosting some different webinars. What can people look forward to, or what would people say, I need to make sure I connect with Angela about this, because that sounds like exactly what I need to help my personal growth, my professional growth, and even spark some of that innovation?
Really good question. It might take a little longer than you want me to take on this.
We want you to share about this.
Right? Yeah. So one of the things that we're trying to do as an alliance, and I'm really referring to several other people, not just me, who are involved in the food industry, different companies, leaders in this space. We'd like to have a globally recognized sanitation, food safety certification, and we're working on developing that. So this is something for which we are going to be having more people participate in it. Right now, we've had probably about 20 people working on it at different levels, doing different things. So that's coming up, and that hopefully will be something that we can roll out through different companies, and it'll be useful to us, as an industry in the long term. We also have, aspects of what we're doing that is to address the technical side of what the industry needs. So in terms of hygienic design and engineering, there's going to be some classes. There's one that I used to actually teach at the university level too, that we'll be rolling out through the Alliance, and we'll have industry leaders who will be teaching that. We have these monthly meetings that we do called the Sanitation Development Group, and it's open to anybody who is in the food industry, who has a food industry job. We like those to not be commercial. So it's one of the things that we don't want. We don't want a company who wants to sell their product to be one of our speakers. Typically, we'd like it to be something where we're educating people. So we have that once a month, and it's open to as many people who want to be part of that. The other we're trying to do is to have a standard that we're working on in terms of technological standards. So we're working towards things like that. And something I want to share with you guys today, and anybody who's on the call, is that on the show, not call really, is that we're also interested in looking at heavy technical and heavy technological aspects of sanitation and food safety, but we also need to look at the fundamental. So one of the things that I personally have a lot of passion in is, and I'm going to call this is driven by spite. Who likes a dirty restroom? None of us. So we want to make sure that every place that manufactures food provides their employees with a good place for rest and a good place for restroom facilities. So we want to hear about the great things that people are doing. So get on our website for that, because we'd like to have a lot more information about who's doing well at this and who's needs some help. But we need that to be employee driven. So we're looking for anybody who has any interest at all in their facilities being good when you go to use them, to provide us some input on that. And that's something on our website you can access. There's also going to be a help center for chemistry. Chemistry is an area in which obviously every company has to use chemistry. So for doing sanitation, cleaning chemistries. So we'll have a help center that if you have technical questions, especially harder questions, so that we can address those. So that's some of the things that we're doing. Obviously trainings, there are several trainings coming up this year.
Wow, busy.
Yes.
A busy.
Yes. Yeah, and I love this focus on restrooms.
Yes.
So often neglected.
Mm-hmm.
Some places done so well.
It should be driven by spite, don't you think? So spite, yes.
It's so important though, right? Like if you are contaminating yourself from the start,
right?
It's not really helpful.
Exactly.
Grand scheme of things. Well, I'm excited about the data that you all collect, and we'll make sure to add the website to the comments after the show so people can find it there if you're watching on replay.
Mm-hmm. I know. And our time together goes so quickly. Mm-hmm. So I am curious, as we think about wrapping up, what would be 2 or 3 takeaways that you think are important for our audience to walk away with today?
I think this year, like I said, for me, it's strategic change. There's lots of other things that I'm looking to do in terms of how to engage with people more strategically to help bring some of the things I'm working on into reality. So I think even for you, think about strategic change. So think about what you want to do in your life. That change doesn't have to be radical. That change needs to be thoughtful. So that's really what I mean there. So, people have goals that they want to set. It may be a physical goal. It may be something for your health. It may be something for your job, whatever that might be. Think about what you'd want to have as an improvement in your life. And think about how you want to see that play out. And then write that down. I would say write it down before you kind of dismiss it, because we often think about, I'd like to do this, but you don't have a plan for it. Right. So in order to make the plan, write it down so that you can then make that something that, as many of us have learned, you have SMART goals. Just like that, you need a SMART goal for what you're going to achieve, a date, a time, what you're going to do, what do you need to get there. And if you need them, and any of us, I'm sure I'm just going to volunteer. I'm going to volunteer myself. If there's something you need that we can help with, we'll be absolutely ready to help you.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
So people may say, what's the best way to connect with you? Because I do need some help. So Angela, how should people reach out to you?
I can give you my email address, and you can always connect with me on LinkedIn, which is probably the easiest place to find this as well. And you can send me a message there. Obviously, if it's something I can help you with, I will. Or if it's something that I can connect you with someone else, right? So those are things that I think we have to do as those who are involved in the industry, who want to support others in the industry as well.
Absolutely.
And you are connected to this event, so people will be able to find your LinkedIn there.
Fabulous.
Yes. Awesome. Well, if you are thinking, yes, I need to write down what is my strategic goal for this year, and I need to get clarity or alignment or support to get there, guess what? My shameless plug is our leadership cohorts are opening this spring. Boot camp starts January 28th. Strategic leader starts in February, and our visionary leader starts in March. We have spot for every person at every level of leadership to be able to move to the next step. So I'm going to, enroll now. I'm okay and shamelessly asking to invite you in because I know how impactful it is based on my own experience, but also all the clients that we've had come through. And so start the year off right, developing yourself and others so that you can really have this professional and personal, goals and success that you want to have.
Yeah. And Angela, you did such a great job even connecting like the technical side to the people side and how we miss out on this people side.
We do.
And that's where we find our passion and where our impact to the industry that we want to play in, and where we are playing in.
And it really is such an important thing, right? I think you have so much focus on technical, and I think it's something that if you're a scientist, you gravitate to solving all the technical issues that you can possibly think of. But then there are personal things that you probably want to do. I will say that my husband, I think he would like to be a stand-up comedian sometime. I would love to be able to support him in doing that, but I don't think he would ever say that, right? But those are the kind of things that may be a big stretch. So maybe you have something like that. If any of you who are listening, right? I think write down that thing that might look crazy out there, but maybe something that will give you some happiness or something that you naturally do that you don't even know you do. So it's worthwhile asking other people for that kind of input as well, and asking, hey, what do you think that I'm really good at doing? Yeah. And then, that may be something that you can grab onto and say, okay, well, how do I want to improve this? How do I want to integrate this into what I do? Perhaps in your job, perhaps not, but whatever it is in your life is still your life, whether it's at this company or another company or, whatever you do, right? So I think it's important for us to integrate these improvements that we have in mind into our lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100% agree. And I love it too, where you ask people, right? Ask people, what do you think I'm good at? Even the book I talked about, the crossroads of shoulds and musts, she suggests even asking like your mom or your childhood best friend or people who knew you, before we, became a part of society, right? And doing the things that we feel like we should do. Those people know, or could know what are some things that we just naturally do or naturally get excited about.
Right.
Like being a stand-up comedian.
Yes.
That may be a stretch, but I mean, it really is one of those things that maybe it's a thing that you do, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to put it out there before you start seeing how the pieces come together.
Yes.
Yes.
Which
so
is
that is the
very
first
hard to do sometimes, even as scientists, right? And technical people. Well, Angela, we have enjoyed our time with you today. Thank you so much for being on the show. Your insights, your experience, and just even watching what you're doing next and hopefully being a part of what you're doing next. We love interacting with you. We've been on a couple of the webinars from the sanitation professional group. So thank you for that call out there. It is such a great group of people and a lot of good knowledge being shared. So thank you for that. And thank you to our audience for being here and listening and being a part of it. You have our contact information. Like Angela said, we are here to help you on your path and through your journey, wherever that may lead. So thank you so much for that. And we will be here next week. Same time, same place, hanging out with you all with another topic, connecting leadership, right, to the things that we do. And with that, we will say, have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your week. And we will see you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for being here.